A major issue in Britain's general election this week is the cost of living crisis, fueled by spiking inflation after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. That, in turn, has put pressure on the country's pledge, written into law, to become carbon neutral by 2050. Fred de Sam Lazaro reports from Aberdeen, Scotland, in partnership with the Pulitzer Centre.
For much of its history, Aberdeen was a small port with mostly fishing vessels that anchored the local economy.
Aberdeen on the east coast of Scotland.
Then, 50 years ago, amid a global energy crisis, black gold was discovered in the North Sea.
Liquid gold. Call it what you like. Britain now has oil.
Aberdeen became the anchor of Britain's oil industry. Hundreds of offshore rigs began to reel in oil, gas, and money. But with reserves dwindling in a global climate crisis, the United Kingdom set a goal to reach net zero by 2050, something highlighted at the COP26 climate conference in Glasgow, Scotland, which itself set a 2045 net zero target. The city of Aberdeen, self-described as Europe's oil capital, pledged to become its energy capital.
It's almost like another industrial revolution.
Maggie McGinley leads a government-funded non-profit called the Energy Transition Zone in Aberdeen. It's intended as an incubator for new companies and emerging technologies, like this experimental platform for floating wind turbines.
We very much see it as a managed transition that's more focused on energy production from offshore wind, from hydrogen, and then utilising carbon capture.
Half a mile away at the Technical Northeast Scotland College, students train to work on oil rigs and offshore wind farms alike.
I believe there's a lot of life left within oil and gas in the North Sea.
And you're turning your handle.
TJ Priestley and classmate Chloe McIntosh said they liked the adventure of working on remote platforms, miles out to sea for weeks at a time, and the perks.
And that's why we're paid the money that we are, because
it's good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good money that we go into.
Brodie McGruer is a renewables tech student.
And I've always wanted to go off onto the rigs and do mechanical work. And since renewables is the next upcoming thing, and it's only going to get bigger, I thought this would be the best thing.
It's a really exciting place to be a young person in the northeast of Scotland right now.
Instructor Paul Balfour says for many students, the choice of oil and gas or renewables is not hard.
The skills are really transferable. Traditional oil and gas companies still exist. They need employees. Offshore wind and wave power, they are looking for employees as well.
3/4 of our total energy needs still come from oil and gas. So the starting point on our journey to decarbonise is already a challenging one.
John Underhill directs the Centre for Energy Transition at the University of Aberdeen. He says that decarbonising journey has been subject to detours, thanks to global developments and politics closer to home.
In the period since COP26, there's been a seismic event, if you like, and with events in Ukraine, we now see that energy security and affordability have come right up the political agenda, perhaps arguably at the expense of environmental sustainability and climate compatibility.
Gas prices and home heating costs and inflation overall soared after the invasion, creating a cost of living crisis. Britain's government called for redoubled efforts to drill more in the North Sea in pursuit of energy security.
We won't let you drill no more.
But to critics, this was a step backwards, evidence more of the influence of oil companies than any security or climate concerns.
The problem is with the same company making its profit out of producing fossil fuels, at the same time controlling the conversation about how quickly renewables are going to expand.
Eric Dalhousen, who once worked in the petroleum industry, now runs an environmental group called Aberdeen Climate Action.
We need a different mindset, a different approach to actually do the things that bring these emissions down, that take our energy demand down.
Very little has been invested in lowering energy demand, he says. Heat pumps and insulation, for example, retrofitting Britain's aging buildings and housing stock, which account for as much as a fourth of all its carbon emissions.
The North East Scotland College doesn't have a retrofit department yet. Yeah? That's That's unbelievable. And because the oil industry controls this transition funding, it's pretty much impossible to get transition funding for things that were to develop these jobs.
And the jobs so far in renewable energy have brought little benefit locally.
Thousands of wind turbines now dot the British coast, the most visible symbol of this country's effort to decarbonize its energy sources. But many people in Aberdeen see something different. They see imported turbines, almost all of which have been installed using foreign labor. Workers housed offshore on boats, many paid far less than even the British minimum wage. Those are terrible optics, aren't they?
They're terrible optics.
At the moment, what you see.
David Whitehouse heads Offshore Energies UK, an association of energy companies.
But there's some great work now going on that shows we can learn from that.
He insists that new homegrown jobs will be developed in emerging industries like hydrogen, carbon capture and storage, and floating wind turbines that can be deployed farther out in windier waters. But Whitehouse says oil and gas will remain the most reliable energy source for decades and must remain in the mix. A total switch to renewables by 2050 is simply not feasible, he says.
Because you'll never get there quickly enough. Yes, we could have more wind, but we would have blackouts. That is not going to be acceptable. So I think it's a recognition that while we in the UK use oil and gas, and we will be on 2050, then actually that it is right that we produce our own.
We've got to take control of renewables. And they pipe oil and gas down.
For his part, Jake Malloy, veteran oil worker and union leader, says fossil fuels will continue to be part of Britain's energy mix because it's profitable for the oil companies. What's needed is major investment in grid expansion to transmit renewable energy, he says. That will create thousands of jobs.
What we should be doing is transitioning those workers into what has to be done to enable all of this electricity we're going to produce. Because we don't have the infrastructure for it just yet. We can produce electricity during the windy periods. What are we going to do when the wind drops? We don't have any storage capacity in the UK. We've got nothing, zero.
We have not had an energy policy, a long-term energy policy in the UK since the 1970s.
Professor Underhill says Britons have taken energy security for granted for decades.
We could make some of those net zero targets and much more easily, but only by shutting things down with the cost that comes with that to jobs, to security. The hard bit is actually, if you like, from now forward.
Britain accounts for barely 1% of global emissions today, but as a developed economy, cradle of the Industrial Revolution, and with it today's climate crisis, many scholars say its example will be closely watched across the globe. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Fred de Sam Lazaro in Aberdeen, Scotland.
And Fred's reporting is a partnership with the Undertold Stories Project at the University of St. Thomas in Minnesota.